Hi everyone, today I'll be talking about Lesson 7's music and musicality. Let's begin with a brief overview of the key figures we'll be discussing. Emily Dickinson, a 19th century American poet, was known for her introspective, often solitary work that mirrored the natural world. Her poems, Split the Lark and To Hear an Oriole Sing, reflect her fascination with nature's sounds, embodying a musicality that transcends words. Moving to Edward Elgar, his cello concerto in E minor is often seen as a lament for the destruction and emotional toll of World War I. Elgar uses the cello to express sorrow and resilience, creating a powerful narrative without words, much like Dickinson does with her poetry. Lastly, Steve Rich, a pioneer of minimalist music, introduced innovative techniques with different trains, a composition blending archival sounds and instruments to contrast his own train journeys in the US with those of Jewish deportees during World War II. Rich's work explores the intersection of memory, time, and music as a form of historical narrative. So, to explore the connection between Elgar's cello concerto and Dickinson's poetry, concerto, particularly through the cello, becomes a voice that expresses deep sorrow and resilience. The instrument mimics the human voice, much like Dickinson's poetic rhythm mirrors birdsong, creating a natural musical cadence. In Split the Lark, Dickinson dissects birdsong, much like Elgar deconstructs emotion through the cello's interaction with the orchestra. Both works show us how much music and poetry can transcend literal meaning to convey deep emotional truths. The shifting dynamic in the concerto, movements of sorrow followed by bursts of energy, mirror the ebb and flow of life, much like the structure of Dickinson's stanzas, which pulls with a similar natural rhythm. Now let's take a look at how Steve Rich's different trains parallels Dickinson's poetic technique. Rich's composition layers pre-recorded sounds, like train whistles and sirens, with live string instruments, creating a sound that captures the contrast between his childhood train rides and the tragic transports during World War II. This technique evokes a sense of place and time, much like Dickinson's use of bird sounds in her poetry. In To Hear an Oriole Sing, Dickinson listens to nature and captures its essence in her rhythmic structure, echoing Rich's layering of sound. Both artists emphasize this idea that sound, whether natural or mechanical, can carry immense emotion and historical weight. For Rich, trains become symbols of survival and loss, while for Dickinson, birds become symbols of life's fleeting beauty. The connection lies in how both use musicality to engage us with profound historical or existential reflections. So for a more modern connection, I, as one of the greatest alt-rock fans of Gen Z, of course looked at alt-rock. It emerged in roughly the 1980s as a genre that pushed against the glossy, formulaic sounds of mainstream rock and pop. With its roots in punk, post-punk, and new wave, alt-rock developed as a reactionary movement, a space where musicians could experiment with the sound and structure. Bands like Pearl Jam and the Red Hot Chili Peppers pioneered this movement, blending diverse genres such as funk, electronic, and punk. What made alt-rock unique was its emphasis on emotional expression over commercial appeal. Songs often carried themes of existential angst, social critique, or personal turmoil, tapping into the deep emotional reservoirs without the pressure of radio-friendly hits. This freedom allowed alt-rock bands to craft authentic, introspective sound waves that resonated with the listeners on a more personal level. And although alt-rock and classical music are worlds apart, they share striking similarities in their structural experimentation and emotional depth. Like Elgar's cello concerto, which uses musical progression to convey sorrow and reflection without lyrics, alt-rock often expresses raw emotion through instrumental intensity. Pearl Jam's Black, for instance, channels deep heartache through the interplay of guitars and Eddie Vedder's voice as another instrument. The structure of these works transcends the need for narrative. Innovation also plays a central role in both genres. Steve Rich uses pre-recorded sounds in different trains, breaking traditional composition norms, much like alt-rock bands utilized advanced production techniques to do the same. The layering of sound in both classical music and alt-rock amplifies the emotional journey, creating complex soundscapes that challenges listeners to engage on a more intuitive, emotional, and personal level. So to wrap up, I'd like to pose a question for the class. How do you think musicality in spoken word poetry, like Dickinson's, compares to instrumental composition like Elgar's or Rich's? Do you feel that one form is more effective in evoking emotion, or are both equally capable of moving us through their unique structures and rhythms? I'm interested in hearing your thoughts. Thank you.